The 6 weeks she was down here, he came down for the last week, and that's when they went to the beach and stuff. Of course, we went down to the beach at the same time. I said we was 5 miles apart, and never got to see him because she wouldn't allow it. And we got to see him one day, the day before they left to go back, more or less. It
Okay.
was they stopped down to see my mother when she was in a rehab center. She was 93 years old, and she wouldn't bring him by here. We had to go pick him up there. I did, and he spent the afternoon here at the house, and me and Cindy and Jamie and Robert and the kids and Jamie, other grandbabies, and we cooked out and just sat around and talked and stuff and hung out on the porch. And that's when he told me that she only knew that they they wanted to get a divorce,
Oh,
and that he was looking for an apartment, for a little 2 bedroom apartment with bunk beds for him and the girls, because that's how his life was going to be from now on. And he'd already more or less set a schedule up from a month or so out from that, so he work the schedule, and he'd have them, one week she'd have them the next week, type thing. Well, that's the first we had heard of it. That
yeah,
she already knew about it, and actually the house is already for sale on
right.
the market. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the first we had heard of it. Was that one day he got to spend with us that week he was down here. Pretty much upbeat and stuff. I mean, he knew what he wanted to do, and like I said, he told me he wanted a little 2 bedroom apartment with bunk beds for the girls. I mean, he was ready to move on with his life. The way Shanann had been acting, the 2 times she'd come down, 2 times she'd visit with us. She, her and Cindy got into it a couple times, basically over minor things. One which everybody heard about was the nut gate, where she more or less said Cindy was trying to hurt Cece and give her ice cream and stuff, which she never gave her the ice cream, and it was a plain vanilla ice cream cup,
Right.
which didn't have nothing in it, and it all blew up on that when she accused Cindy of trying to hurt Cece by giving her something with nuts in it, which we all knew she couldn't have nuts.
Right.
But that was, and the time before that, she'd come down twice, 2 weekends in a row. And the time before that, when my neighbor had passed away, and Cindy went to get her hair fixed and stuff, and she come by my work and signed some paperwork on the car that we was getting, and she was gone, probably 3 or 4 hours or whatever. And she called my phone at work, blowing it up because Cindy left her phone at the hairdresser and had trying to go back and get it, which made her later. And Cindy offered beforehand. She said, "I'm going to take you back to 7 pounds an hour." I said, "No, I'll just wait till you get done with everything." And she fussing at Sunday saying, "You left me alone with these kids for 5 hours." I said, "Well, they're your kids too. You're not down here for us to watch them 24/7." I thought she'd just run off with the kids just to punish Chris for something. I thought she would just run off with the kids somewhere and just punishing Chris for something. That's just the way she is. Not just one thing that really I didn't catch what he was saying. I mean, the police department, Frederick Police Department, kept calling. One of the detectives there kept calling him, and they kept dropping the call. And every time we start talking, he'd call back again. And then Chris would talk to him a few minutes. He'd drop the call on bad reception or whatever. And he just said one thing, which it didn't make any sense to me at the time. He said, "So I wish I should have just went to the Rockies game that night,"
Mm.
which it didn't click at the time. Yeah, because when we was talking, when he told me what happened, and actually and told me where the girls were at, and he said, "Dad, I could not put them with her after what she did to them." And right after that, he said she was evil. It's very seldom ever crying. The last two times I ever remember crying was at the memorial service we had for Bella and Cece at the gravesite. I did cry there. And a few weeks later, I was at church when I got baptized and was all hugging and worshiping with the preacher and everything and talking. I was crying then. I think that's a long time. She's seen me crying probably last 20 years, probably. I hold a lot of things in, which he does too. And that's, you can take it for what it is. That's why I was brought up. I'm sorry. After everything was over, they ended up taking me to a hotel, and because I couldn't stay at the house or anything, so I went to a hotel and I called back and stuff the next morning trying to find out where he was at, where I could see him and stuff. He said, "No, you can't see him," and actually never did tell me where he was at. They said he's not allowed any visitors or anything at this time, so I never got to see him again. I tried 2 or 3 times that day to get up with him, and that's when I was leaving going back to the airport. That's when the defense lawyers called me. And I turned around and come back and talk to them that afternoon. No. The only time we got to see him from the time of his arrest was the night before the plea deal. We got to see him. Each of us talked to him for 30 minutes on my closed circuit TV. Nothing from the girls. Actually, Frank brought back some of Chris's jerseys and stuff and brought back. We met here in Fayetteville and he gave them to me and stuff. And I called, they sent me his wallet. I called the DA trying to get his phone and he refused to return it to me. And I said, the reason behind that. And he said, well, he had heard through People magazine or whatever that Christopher might be appealing this case, so he would not give me his phone. The night before the sentencing, we actually got to see the assistant DA. We didn't get to see the assistant DA. So we went over to see him that night with the so-called victims advocate person and talked to him. And we went in there and sat down with him and we was talking. And I asked him, what evidence do you have? And he said, well, we have a theory. And I said, well, what evidence do you have? And he kept saying, we got a theory. He would never tell me what evidence. He never showed us any evidence. He never said he had any evidence. He said, we have a theory. Well, it's the same song and dance he did in this interview after sentencing. He never would say what he showed us because he didn't show us anything at all. Not till right before the sentencing. We was at the hotel with her right before we went over. Me and Cindy both wrote out what we was going to say. We asked her what she was going to say. She said she was going to wing it. And we had no idea what she was going to say when she got up there. And we was just shocked as everybody else was what she said, because we did not agree with anything she said. Well, that was only the second time we've seen him, and from the time it happened till the sentencing. And it was hard, very hard for us. But, we still love our son no matter what. And it's very hard to go through, losing the grandchildren and everything. And it's been real hard on us last 2 years. But we was there for him because the whole world is against him right now. So I guess we're the only ones he's got left. Yeah, when he gets a call, sometimes they've been on lockdown because of the COVID and stuff. Sometimes he gets a call, sometimes he don't. So we talk to him whenever he can get out to call us. That was totally false. When we got to talk to him the night before the plea deal, we were told not to discuss the case, and if we did, they'd shut it down. We could have all the small talk we wanted to, but not to mention the case. And one time, Cindy did ask him, Chris, if you did not do this, please do not plead guilty or accept the plea deal. And he turned and looked at his attorneys. We had some attorneys behind us, and he had no attorneys with him. He turned around and looked at them, turned back, looked at Cindy, and said, "Mom, I made my decision." He didn't say I did it. He said, "Mom, I made my decision." Because they kept telling him it didn't matter if it's 1 or 3, he's still gonna get life in prison. And all they was trying to do right then was save his life. Basically the same thing. I mean, they come out right after we had a hurricane and stuff down here, and they sat down with us and told us more or less. I mean, they're just trying to save his life. You know, said it didn't matter 1 or 3. I mean, he's still gonna get life in prison. Not in Colorado.
Yeah.
It ain't happened in probably 30, 40 years, if then. I'm not sure the last time they put somebody to death down there.
Right.
Never received it. That one time I did talk to Mr. Work. I asked him about it, about the who the father of the baby was. He said Chris, and that's all he said. About the other person that was questionable about that, his name is also Chris. So you can take it. That's what it's worth. No, the only time I ever talked to that man was on the phone when I was in North Carolina and he was in Colorado. Never met the man before. The only time I ever seen him was in the courtroom, and the only one I ever talked from the DA's office was assistant DA the night before the sentencing. That's very hard to say. So I don't know if it's something they needed or they was doing that for the other part of the family or what the reason behind that was. No, we had no clue they was going up there. We didn't know until after the fact, a few days after the fact, and Chris told us that they come up there. Or I'm not sure what the time period was, but we never knew about it till way after they went up there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they lied to them, which I guess they can do that, and said it's just between them. Of course, they recorded it and released every bit of it, which Chris said thought he had to tell them something, so I guess he just made up something so they'd leave him alone. He's the same way I am. It takes a whole lot to make me mad. The same way with him. I don't like confrontation at all. I mean, I ain't never been that way. Well, the hurt and the pain I seen in that boy's face that day, I believe what he told me sitting there. I mean, he's just like, as far as emotions, he's just like me. When he told me, he said, "Dad, I cannot put them with her after what she did." And turned around after that said she was evil. And I believe him. It's going to be a long, hard road, but I think if we can find the right person to defend him or a lawyer or whatever, and actually dive deep into the case and see if they do have any evidence, which actually they told me they had a theory. They never told me they had any evidence at all. If there was any evidence there, it's long gone by now because everybody and their brother's been in that house. I think he was in shock for so long from everything that happened. The trauma of his post-traumatic stress syndrome or whatever. I think that set in, and it's took him a long while. It still hurts him every day. I know it hurts us every day.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long road for anybody gets back to a normal life. If we ever get back to a normal life.